Well, welcome to this episode of Wealth Coherence. I'm so thrilled today to get to introduce you to Abby Haverman. She is a dear friend and a phenomenal coach when it comes to empowerment for women, leadership, and brain heart coherence from her own particular lens. So I'm so thrilled you're able to be here, Abby. And she's a podcast host in her own right. So we'll learn more about what she's up to. And I'd love for you to start by introducing yourself from the lens of some of your background in terms of this interface between our interpersonal relationships, our leadership, our wealth, and our relationship to our money, because you have a really varied background in that area.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. I'm so happy to be here. It's just been so great to have our friendship. We didn't meet that long ago, but it's blossomed, and I really appreciate you. And you were on my podcast as well, which it was a great episode for anybody listening and wants to listen to Emily. The Intuition Incubator is the name of my podcast. But yeah, so I started my career as a psychotherapist. I actually have a social work degree, as you do, and I worked in many hospitals in the Denver area. I opened a private practice. I did that for many years and worked with a lot of high net worth people. And then when I went through a divorce, I sort of reinvented myself. When I got remarried, I ended up working with my husband in his financial firm. And so I was a financial advisor for 12 years. And along the way, I was learning about neuroscience. I was participating in a lot of Dr. Joe events. I eventually became a neurochange solutions consultant, which I'm not anymore, but I was for a few years. Heart math certified, positive intelligence facilitator. And then, of course, I'm always doing my own work. And so I've been working for a number of years with a method called The Work, which is by a mystic named Gurdjieff. And then, of course, just ancient wisdom practices and things like that. And so I take all of that stuff and I bring it to the stage in keynotes, and I bring it to my coaching, and I really help audiences and people move from exhaustion to energy, from irritation to inspiration, and from self-doubt to sovereignty by helping them remember who they are, what I call as their soul signal, which is really where I think wealth is of all kinds. And I know we agree that it really comes from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that phrase. We're going to dive into that a little bit more. Just for people who might be tuning in for the first time and don't know so much about how we know each other. Abby and I know each other through both of our interest in human potential and development and what's possible. And part of that was studying the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. That's what she means by Dr. Joe. And he's world renowned in terms of helping people heal themselves on all kinds of levels using meditation. And the thing that's really powerful about that work is that it's scientifically proven. In fact, there's different ways. There's a movie called The Source, the movie, which goes into detail about the science behind it. And just to highlight that it's all about self-empowerment. It's not so much about believing that he's going to heal you or that you have to study his work. It's more like, no, we have it within us. So it's within us. We can do this ourselves. And I love that you come with so many different modalities. So we'd love for you to share a little bit more about your particular approach, especially for people with the financial background. I love that you have the psychology background, the social work background, and the financial advising background. And it's so important because any decisions we make about money, our whole relationship with money has a huge emotional component to it. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you see there in terms of people's best selves when it comes to money, and also what might get in the way.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that gets missed a lot is that people, we don't understand just how complex the mind is, how complex of a machinery that we're dealing with. And so a lot of times what happens is that we have people that are very self-aware, or we believe we're self-aware, but we really don't see so much of what's happening, because as we know from having learned this work, we're only using 5% of our conscious mind. Only 95% is subconscious. And so a lot of times we're operating with an idea of how we want to be behaving around money and around our affairs and everything. But then we find ourselves behaving completely differently, or, feeling frustrated, or we don't even realize that we're functioning from a place of chronic guilt or shame or imposter syndrome, or trying to look one way when we feel another. Like, it's just so commonplace for us to do that now that we don't even realize when it's happening. And so when you're getting into coherence, from a scientific standpoint, when you are shifting your body physiologically, which we know that we can do by a number of different methods, and every modality that I mentioned has its own method of how you do that, right? But the net result is that you get into heart coherence and you begin to feel more positive feelings, or I should say that happens the opposite way, right? You feel positive feelings and you begin to get in heart coherence. And I know you've had Bruce Cryer, who was, the founder. And so your listeners probably know all about that. But you are naturally getting into this state where you are your essence self. So if you're talking about positive intelligence, that means you're getting into sage wisdom. If you're talking to me, I'm going to say you're resonating to your soul signal. You don't have to think anymore about what's the right thing to do or what should I do or why is this happening. You're not, because you're not in that state anymore. You're in a state of coherence. And so you are intuitively moving through the world, automatically based on your best self. And guess what? Everybody's best, because you're resonating to a signal of love and oneness and all of the things that the mind tries to do to tell you you're bad if you do this, or you're good if you do that, or you should feel guilty for this, or all of those things. They're not there in that moment. And so we're not driven by those emotions or those, faulty thoughts, or what we would say in PQ language, the saboteurs.
Oh yeah, the positive intelligence world is great for that. I love that Shirzad Charmaine's work as
Yeah.
really fantastic. I think one of the things that I want to highlight from what you said is the power of using the somatic experience of our body. So, like for instance, just we all have this all the time. Some sort of financial decisions in front of us, and there's some sort of internal pressure or timeline, or you have to act now to get this special thing, or you have to do that. There's all this stuff that's being coming at us all the time that's psychologically based to get us to go to a place of fear and reactivity and to tap into that other part of our brain that's unconscious, subconscious, to have us make choices that then we regret later on, or we have remorse later on, or we're unhappy with it, or and all you need to do in those moments is feel into your body. If you have a sinking pit in your stomach, if you have this sense of like your palms are sweating or your heart's starting to race faster, there's a chance that the amygdala has gotten connected. The fight or flight part of our brain's gotten connected. It's like, oh, I have to act now or this is a problem. And it can be all subconscious, but taking that moment and pausing and letting yourself feel how this feels in your body can make such a difference so that you can get to that state of coherence by using the breath. And it's not going to happen typically by using the thought mind, because the mind is trying to figure those things out. So I love that you brought in the body, and that our mind's not necessarily our best ally in those moments. So
yeah, I mean, the mind is wonderful and it does a lot of great things. I've interviewed a number of different folks on my podcast as well, and neuropsychologists and stuff. And it turns out we really don't need to think more than maximum 30 minutes a day. Like, thinking with the left hemisphere of the brain is something that's good for like engineering and math things. But beyond that, really any problem that we're dealing with, whether it's money related or not, it has to do with people, and people are emotional beings. And that's not a rational thing that you're trying to figure out. So really dropping into your heart and coming at it from that space is going to be a much faster, more effective way of moving through that issue, whatever you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's interesting. I often will coach clients, and I do this myself. Like if I feel like there's any pressure related to a financial decision, I will immediately say to the person, oh, in this case, if I have to give you an answer right now, my answer is no. So there's a way in which I'm more empowered internally by choosing myself first and choosing to wait to come from that state that you're describing, rather than acting and then somehow justifying in the future or feeling bad about it later on.